Now 12:35. Can't find the sun. Ow. I think that's the sun. Yeah, that's the sun. Okay. So I'm not actually looking at the sun, I'm hiding behind the phone and avoiding looking around the phone so there's shadow over my eyes. The only reason I said ow was because I got a glimpse at its rays. But I'm gonna not do that again. And it's done now. We can't actually see any pictures when it's noon because the sun is too bright. All we know is that it gets brighter even under these, or in, or whatever you'd say. And thus, we can't make another picture, but we can do something with it, but we'll find out with the dice. I don't have that much battery life, but we're gonna go for an excursion in which I'm gonna walk, and I'll probably head home once my phone dies, but we're gonna film that part, and we're going to think and discuss energy and potency in relation to what we just looked at. The most common kind of effect light has is on the clouds. There's also a nice sundog. Means the weather is changing, apparently. But the question is how this happens, and whether this was the same cause or similar cause. Almost everything in this image was caused and moved and affected by the wind, and thus the light. It is sometimes unclear whether something was caused by the wind or by the person who dropped it. I am less likely to encounter garbage here than here. These things can be fixed in complicated ways. To demonstrate this, we're going to find the 4 elements I selected in small amounts as coincidental objects in the environment by looking for them where they might be. There's the red one. The diversity of shapes is surprising. My phone died, so I had to get home and charge it, so it's a bit later now. And we have our thing that we made out of the 2 objects I was able to gather while on my walk. It's just, all it does is take advantage of uncertainty and demonstrate it, and that's about it. But we're going to manipulate it in some way after this. So I'll show you in a sec. It has 2 possible uncertainty possibilities to it. The first is whether the ball inside of it will come out, and the second is whatever direction the ball will travel in. A third can be added on whether or not the cat will go after it. It came out right away, but it doesn't always, unless I broke it, since and the cat did not go after it because she didn't know it was there. Uncertainty principle. Cats are great examples of uncertainty. Let's try again. it did not come out. Because, as I noticed before, it only comes out when you don't do this. If you do that, it doesn't come out. If you do this, it sometimes comes out. The cat doesn't know what it is. She just left. We're gonna. Okay. If I throw it like this, it did not come out. I'm trying to show you the example of it actually leaving. I don't know if you saw that, but it did come out. See, it's over there now. It's more likely to come out when you throw it like this because it puts more pressure on the ball, which is actually what we're getting at with the idea that I'm about to explain. We're going to look at the certainty and uncertainty of uncertain things, and like the metaphysics of how uncertainty works. So, yeah. These would be examples of uncertainty in that this is where it originates and then it branches off into one of two potential paths. The object we just used has a second branch where it either releases the ball or does not, and if it releases the ball, it has actually way more possible potential directions that it can go in. But the thing about this is that it works the same way as time, which in time you have an event which goes in this direction or this direction, and it only happens in one of those two directions at any particular moment, and any parallel is sort of not accessible at that time, but a lot of the time it's in a circular loop, which means that events can recur at different positions and arrangements. So, yes, it is a reference to that one movie that I forget the name of. Just funny enough. But it does work quite similarly to the idea that you travel in one straight direction and then it branches off into one of two possible places. But the chance can actually be predicted when you make tables with this symbol. So like the ball, which I guess this basically shows what it would be. It would be something like null same or other, just as a basic, and like you could add another one where it's like Xeno for the example of this thing, which I'm not even really sure what it is. It might be the end of a cooking utensil. I don't know what it was doing next to a gas station, but that's where I found it. Yeah. Actually, there was a Tim Hortons there. That makes sense now. Maybe. Still don't know why I was next to the gas station. Anyways, moving on. The dice. Okay, that didn't help the focus. The dice has 6 possible states that it can be in. They're all very similar, except for the symbol on it, which distinguishes each individual state from the other. When it's rotating, it takes on any one of those states, and when it hits the weight or the scale, it's at one specific position and then rotates again to another position, and because the weight changes with the rotation and the support, I guess, because when it's on a corner, its support is totally different from when it's flat like this, which makes sense because you can't really keep it like that because its mass is sort of curved in another direction. It appears random, but it's actually predictable if you can measure at some point where the position is, and then know from that position and its previous one where it'll then end up following that. So you can build tables like this to sort of distinguish what the possible chances of something occurring are, and then manipulating them accordingly. And I'll explain how that works in a second, because these are not as uncertain as they appear when you don't know what causes that specific branch from branching off. And it's always based off the previous condition. If you've ever done programming, you'd know that you can't program real random, because the way random works in a computer is it's just a random seed, and that seed generates whether or not it behaves in that specific way. And it's the same for reality. But this doesn't actually show anything about free will or determinism, because, and I'm only going on a tangent because I don't want to concern people about that, but because the number or the seed of that thing would be, in your case, what you would be. If so, like, say if your seed was 5, that's what you are. It behaves like that at all times. And it's not actually distinguishing whether it's free or determined by this, or if you're 5, then you're both free and determined at the same time, because you're going to behave as you would be, and thus it's kind of a mix of either, and it depends more on the context that you're in, but that's a different story. Anyways, the thing about seeds is that what starts it is how it becomes what it is after. So the predictability is in the origin and then result from that origin. It's extremely linear. It's from like point A to point B, and every variable between it is what defines if it's going to end up at B or end up at C. But I think this is simple physics stuff that may not have been, I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know if this is how they teach it or not. I never took physics. I just made up my own. Anyways, I'll be back. I'm going to sort of combine the 6 things that I just worked on for most of the day into something of use, I guess. So, I don't know, we'll just draw a random line. I don't think I can do that. I can't measure the weight of light at the moment because I don't have an accurate enough scale for that. I'm going to just draw lines here. Like this. Cool. Okay. So that would and give us a starting point at the marble. So marble time. Weight. I can't use the marble because it's glass. And yeah, because I can't throw the marble at the weight or the scale because it might break either the scale or the other thing, the marble. So, I'll try that, but I don't know if that's gonna do anything. I could also use this that I found that would be less fragile and problematic, but it's not as transparent. So we'll just do both and see what happens. I don't think much is going to happen, but we never know. Okay. The experiment that we were doing was going to see if light affected both the weight and the uncertainty. If light had an effect on weight and uncertainty, we could do all kinds of stuff. Except it didn't work. And then I spent an hour failing at other things, except for one thing that is not that interesting. However, the idea that light can affect uncertainty and weight isn't wrong. And I'll show you why in a second. Humidifier. If it was solar powered instead of plugged into the wall, it might be solar powered, depends where it got its electricity, then its weight changes based off the light, because it absorbs water in the air while that light is active. As I said earlier, the scale thing with the dice, I don't know if it's true. Someone would have to use a slower camera to at least see if it adds up to the same thing and if it continues to repeat the pattern it did when I tried it that time. If it does, that's cool. But we're going to do something else using an attempt at making a primitive version of something with weight changing based on light, but I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that yet. So, yeah. That is the best way to change the weight of an object using light. When you don't have a solar panel and a dehumidifier the size of a marble. Yeah. Now that we have a way of changing weight and a substance to use, we just have to find a purpose for our weight changing substance based off the light. I guess technically you would, for more realism, you would put it on the candle while lit. I don't feel like burning my finger, so we're going to do a mix of both the light, the candle after it's lit, and this. But all of those variables can be manipulated to make it of a different sense. You don't have to use wax. You could also use water absorbed from the atmosphere or air around you. But I don't have that, so we're doing that instead. We're going to try something with the same 7 things as before, 6 plus 7 with the thing that we made, but rather than trying to provide evidence of it like the original thing suggested, we're going to manipulate them in such a way that they do something. So I'll be back once I figured out what we're doing. The thing, there's not really a reason for why it's not possible to weigh it, but the reason I couldn't weigh it was just because my scale wasn't good enough. And I don't know if there's a scale that is good enough for that, because it would be below the scale of at least an electron or other particles to figure out. And it would be less than light or the same. I don't know. That's something science can do if they want. I'm just making possible. I could say that maybe it's possible because it's possible on a macro scale. Actually, now that I think of it, using polymer clay, when you bake it, sometimes it's not balanced anymore once you take it off. But a little bit of wax might actually help that if it's the right color. If you dip the part you want to balance on in wax and then you put it down and let it dry a bit, it might just balance a bit better, because the wax takes it, evens out the shape, which is a way to use light and mass. Which honestly, I don't know. That's one idea I had. I'll try to find a better one for use. It's really good for changing the weight and support of the object in question. I guess I'll have to make a couple balls of clay, but I don't really want to because I don't know. But it's obvious that it changes both the support of the object because it adds a weight to a certain part of the object. But other than that, it's not overly. It's actually kind of useful, but like, it's not a use yet. I'm gonna keep trying. This is a symmetrical object with a slight asymmetry to make it look like it is and to note which side it's on. The difference is it's not actually asymmetrical. It has a liquid inside of it and air and bubbles, which make certain parts of it lighter than other parts, and thus its rotation is unique to the object. It's literally just a water bottle.